Hi guys, Garrett back here with Producer Freedom again. This time I'm making a large batch of tomato sauce to cut down a little bit on the money and dependency on the store-bought stuff. Pretty straightforward process. Hardest part's actually going to be packing it all up at the end and freezing it up, taking the time to do that. So what we're going to use, pretty straightforward. Ground peeled tomatoes, big 28-ounce cans, get those at BJ's for next to nothing for about 6 of them. Tomato paste, same deal. A blender, a can opener, and a couple of little kitchen utensils. I'm going to do the herbs in the crock pot after, so we're going to start with the blending part. Basically, my food processor rather, is about big enough to do 2 cans of these big ones. I'm going to put 2 of these, plus normally use about a teaspoon for that small can. I'm going to use a tablespoon for these 2 big ones. It's a little more. Use more or less depending on how thick you want your sauce to come out, and you're going to pulse the food processor blender to kind of get the consistency you want as well. When you're going with the tomatoes for the big cans, you do want the peeled stuff. Other than that, it doesn't matter. You can use the whole plum tomatoes. You can use the ground tomatoes. It doesn't really affect anything there. And we're going to make a fairly straightforward, simple sauce to use as a base, which we can modify as we're cooking to fit specific dishes. And then in the end, I'm also going to end up freezing this in little 1-quart freezer bags. Makes a pretty decent serving size for just me and my wife. I'd probably go closer to a gallon, use a gallon freezer bag if I was kind of doing this for a larger family or something, and I'd also probably want a bigger food processor, or at that point I might just do it all with chunked up or chopped tomatoes or something like that, just to do it in a big pot all at once. But either way, you could run the food processor a few times. So without further ado, pretty simple. 2 of these cans go in here, a tablespoon goes in here, we pulse it, and then we'll be done with that step. Then we'll throw it in the crock pot to break down the tomato paste a little bit, keep stirring that, add in our herbs, which I'll show you when we get to that step, and then let that go. That doesn't take too long, maybe 15, 20 minutes just to get everything to kind of cook down a little bit together. Go longer if you want to. It kind of gets a little thicker than where you cook it down. And we'll be back with that step in a second. I'm going to save you the noise of the food processor, and hopefully you know how one of those works. Alright, I'm back. I actually was able to do a double batch of that sauce that was just there. So there's 4 of the big cans and a couple of the tablespoons of the tomato paste. Looks like it's going to be about right once I cook it down. I'm just going to use a regular crock pot. My settings are low, high, and warm, so I'm going to start it up on high just to get everything mixed together and starting to cook down a bit. As soon as it starts to really bubble on me, I'm going to put it down to low and leave it that way for a while to let it kind of cook down a little on me. This is the point where it also add all the herbs and seasonings. What I'm using is this is really good stuff. It's from harvesteating.com, Chef Keith Snow. It's all organic herbs. It's got a little mushroom, a little garlic and stuff in it. It's a Northern Italian blend. Gluten-free, all organic, really, really high quality stuff that goes into it. Comes in these little pouches. He has really good seasonings. I've tried his grill seasonings and stuff too. I've bought some of those. Yeah, haven't been disappointed at all. So this part I'm just going to kind of guesstimate. There's a lot of sauce here, so I'm going to put a pretty healthy chunk of a handful into here. So I'm going to start with about that, and we'll see. I'll season to taste as we go. That's a start. I'm going to stir it in by hand very quickly before I set this thing off to simmer on its own, and I think that might be about right. I might put in another batch, not quite as big as that, into it, but I want it to be a little bit neutral. Like I said before, so that I can change it if I want to. If I want to make it more garlicky, I can do that. If I want to spice it up a little bit, I want to make it so I could do that too. So I don't want any any one flavor too overpowering here. Can make a good base out of this that I can use it for a bunch of different things and have it all done up all ahead of time. So now that's kind of mixed in. I think it's pretty well mixed in. Just kind of looks like jar sauce texture, more or less. You know, you could really make it too thin, too smooth, too chunky, depending. I did start with the ground tomato, so it is a little on the smooth side. If the local BJ's here had the whole plum tomatoes peeled or something like that, I probably would have used those instead. Got a little more chunky, but this will work just fine. And the main reason I'm doing it, in addition to getting a better product, is I bet for the 4 cans of this I'm using, I'm going to price this out at the grocery store at some point to check next time I go. And the insignificant amount of tomato paste, the 2 tablespoons of that stuff there, I'm getting, let's see, I'm getting about a gallon of sauce, I guess, which is quite a bit, versus, and I bet I'm spending less, just going to my pantry here, than getting a 3-pack of these Bertolli sauce, which isn't going to be even as good. Now this one's a burgundy wine sauce, right? So if I want to make something more wine-based, I would just add wine to this, and that would drive up my price a little bit. But for a base sauce, I'm going to get a gallon instead of 3 of these. So, I don't know, off the top of my head, I'm going to get about twice as much for definitely less money. I'm going to do a cost comparison on that and report back with that information. But like I said, I'm just going to cover this up, let it go on high till it starts to bubble on me a little bit. Then I'll roost down to low, and we really don't have to worry about cooking or anything like that here. We're just doing this to get all the flavors blended together and to get the texture right. If I need more tomato paste in it, I'll just throw some in as I go. That does take a little bit of time to break down. If you add it in after the blender, then you just stir it in by hand, but as the temperature comes up, it helps to break down that thick paste. So that's my next step, and when that's all set. Hello everybody, this is Garrett with Produce Your Freedom. Apologize in advance if my speech is a little off, and I know my teeth and gums are a little wine stained at the moment. It happens. I just want to knock this out, and I enjoyed a couple glasses of wine tonight. So, finishing up the sauce recipe here, just had a couple quick notes before we get to packing it up of what I found. The seasoning I used, which was Chef Keith Snow's, or the company's Harvest Eating Northern Italian seasoning, I had originally just gone with that, pretty much nothing else. I had to use a lot more of it than I thought I might, but you can always add more. You can't take any away. So I probably had 1 small handful in there initially. I added another in my second clip, and I probably ended up doubling that overall, if not maybe a little bit more. And the thing I would note with that in addition to that, I ended up adding some garlic seasoning, some garlic powder. I didn't want to overpower it. There definitely is garlic in his seasoning blend, but not quite as much as I like in my sauce, so I added some of that. And the other thing I added was kosher salt, and I think that really helps to bring out the tomatoey flavor of the tomatoes. I don't know how else to describe it, but there are just some flavors that you add a little bit of salt, and you don't taste overly salty, but you do taste more of the other things that were there. I don't know why that is, but I know that in cooking that sometimes is the case. So I added several, good shakes, maybe 10 shakes or so of kosher salt, but I know I'm not being scientific here. I don't really like to follow recipes very much. I'm not big into baking because of that. I just taste as you go, and let your family members taste as you go as well. They're going to be eating it as well, and another set of taste buds is not a bad thing to maybe point out some things that could be done better that you might not have thought of. So taste as you go. It's easy enough to do it that way, and it's you're going to get way better results than using a straight recipe that doesn't exactly suit you. Cooking is an art, and art is subjective. So in that respect, you should try to make it your own as best you can. All right, onto the packaging of the sauce that is now done. I got these Ziploc freezer bags with the little slider tops from the grocery store. They're supposed to be stand-up bags. They're kind of a little bit squared off on the bottom. You can kind of see that, but not really. I think they would work for dried goods, where you could kind of spread it out a little bit, get it to balance on the counter, and toss some dried goods of some kind into there, and it would stand, and then the weight would help to stabilize it after that. I'm actually not going to use it here. I am using those bags just because I bought them and wanted to try them. But it's not as stable as I would have hoped. So I'm going to stick it in a square container, square Tupperware container. That's also going to make my cleanup a lot easier. Thinking ahead, we're definitely going to save ourselves some time and effort if we do that, and we love saving time and making our lives easier. So I have my crock pot of sauce, I have my soup ladle. My rule of thumb for that seasoning that I came out with by the end of it, what it essentially figured out was that I should be able to see a good amount of speckles of the actual herbs and garlic and whatnot, but not, that shouldn't be too prevalent. And you'll get it by flavor, and then after you get it by flavor, you'll kind of know what it looks like. So you add a little stirred in. Oh, that's not enough. Add a little more stirred in, and then that way you will know before you cook your sauce down in the crock pot a little bit, just to get all those flavors to come together, what it should look like before that, and then you can be pretty confident in not having to taste and alter. You can just kind of set it up. You know that it's right because you used a similar amount to last time, and you can go from there. My crock pot would have held a couple more cans of that of the tomatoes I used as well. So I think in the future I'm just going to use the full 6-pack of 28-ounce cans. I think that'll be full right to the top, but I use a decent amount of pasta sauce, and that'll make my life easier in terms of being able to go buy those cans real cheap, make it once. With these things, the bigger the batch you do, the better off you are, honestly, as long as you can store it appropriately. There's a lot of time sunk into making your sauce each time you make a dish, and I kind of used to do that sometimes. I'd get the stewed tomatoes, the peeled tomatoes, and tomato paste and stuff, and I'd just crack open a can and make what I needed. And it really is a waste of time. It doesn't take much longer to do it this way. Once it's in the crock pot, you set it and forget it for a little bit. So definitely worth doing larger batches of these types of staples if you're going to use them on a regular basis. I will spare you the effort of watching me ladle this into this. It's delicious. I had my wife try it. It's definitely way better than the store-bought stuff that we went with. I still haven't done the economic financial breakdown of it. I will try to do that. I have actually been to the grocery store. I just was kind of rushing in and out for a couple of things, so I didn't really do what I planned on, which is going through, writing down what all this stuff actually cost at a standard grocery store rather than a wholesale grocery store like Costco or BJ's or Sam's Club, and just kind of doing a quick and dirty financial analysis comparison of that to even the relatively inexpensive jarred stuff that we buy sometimes. So hope you enjoyed the video. That wraps up the pasta making extravaganza, I guess, and enjoy your journey to freedom. Remember, produce your freedom or life will produce your chains. This is Garrett, and feel free to comment, like, subscribe, whatever. Do all that good stuff, and check out the blog as well. Have a great day, and I'll check in on you again soon.